Welcome to the Nitty Gritty. Today we have Jeremy Hammond with us.
Not the hacker.
Not the hacker. If you Google Jeremy Hammond, he's
Yeah.
a big-time hacker.
I mean, we should have just rolled with that.
We should have.
Well,
Like, he's on the line from prison right now with us.
He got his one phone call.
hey, I just got out.
So Jeremy is the owner, founder with his brother of Caliber now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Caliber or Caliber Smart?
Caliber Communications.
Okay.
We do go by Caliber Smart.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known Jeremy for a long time. Previous businesses, different names. We're going to jump into all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to have you here, man.
Hey, you know what? When AVB's up to something, I want to be up to that too. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So, Jeremy, give us a quick 30-second kind of intro to what Caliber is right now.
Yeah. So Caliber, it's pretty simple. Well, we're a sales engine marketing group. We do face-to-face direct, we call it direct sales for big Fortune 500 companies as well as ourselves. So there's some products that we own, but for the most part, we go with big brands that have already built their brand. We take that brand, we represent it well, and get paid basically to market. That's what we do to make money. But when you say, like, what do we do? Like, we really develop people. Like, that's what we do.
How do you develop people? What do you mean by that?
So what I think that Caliber and, like, what makes us special is we take individuals that either are looking for more or at a young part of their life, they're looking to accomplish the things that they set out to accomplish. We figure out what that why is, what they really want, and then our products become the mechanism that helps them reach those goals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and grow as individuals. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah.
Simon Sinek Golden Circle, right?
That's right.
Your why in the middle, and then
That's right.
your products are just the what's of the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll change, and they'll
How do you remember all this stuff?
Well,
You're like a walking book. It's crazy. It is like he has the perfect, like, just, what do you want, quote?
hey, as a
Or, like,
financial
that-
advisor,
that's what you want, right?
you have to be that
If someone's
way.
managing your wealth, you want them to have, like, a steel trap for memory.
You have to come across as educated,
Educated,
professional,
smart,
smart.
retains information,
got
keeps
it.
secrets.
I've got everybody tricked.
Whatever.
And I think that's been an evolution. When we first started, it's actually, we were in it to grow a company and make money, and I think over time that's evolved to doing it for different purposes.
What's so fun is we've had all sorts of different people come in, and everyone from the outside can kind of guess or see what a business is.
Mm-hmm.
But I love talking to the guys who started. Sorry, guys or girls. Wasn't trying to be that. But
Oh my gosh,
Male
Andrew.
chauvinist.
and
Grow up.
but there's always like a deeper meaning. There's a deeper meaning behind what it is that they're doing, and they try to just kind of communicate that through the business. But this isn't your guys' first business.
No.
So walk us through. Actually, you know what? Let's kind of jump back into a little bit of who Jeremy Hammond is.
Yeah.
So where'd you grow up?
So small town Idaho boy. So all of our Idaho listeners, what?
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, Taysom Hill. Hey, don't forget about Mangum, man. Tanner Mangum. Come on.
Yeah, I love Tanner too.
Both great guys. But yeah, small town Rexburg, Idaho. Fastest growing city in America.
I feel
that
like
real?
everybody has the fastest growing
it is
city
blowing
in America.
up.
Right?
The university
Vineyard.
there is now like 35,000 students, and the population's like 20.
BYU Idaho's 35,000,
It's huge.
and
It's
they don't
grown.
have sports. Oh,
That's
messed up.
Hey, yeah, small town, 7 kids, 7 Hammonds, 5 boys, 2 girls.
Where do you fit in?
Yeah, I'm second to oldest.
Oh, wow.
So my business partner and our CEO is my older brother, the oldest.
Ooh.
There's lots of fun stories.
This is
with that.
exciting. I just figured out what I want to talk about.
Yeah. So
Dang.
honestly, like, I think I can't remember who talked about it. I listened to one of your podcasts. Someone talked about it, but my dad just did a fantastic job we lived a super humble, meek like lifestyle.
What did your dad do?
He was grounds and maintenance for the local hospital most of my life. He now does the same thing for Best Western down in Idaho Falls. But money wasn't something we had, but I still look at my dad as the biggest influencer in my life. And I think the one thing he taught Mike and I and the rest of the Hammonds is value money, because we didn't have any. So if you want it, you're going to work. And we had jobs, potatoes, mowing lawns. We worked if we wanted anything, right, including school clothes, anything like that. And then love for other people. Like, I think that's really my niche in our business is the people side. And I 100% get that from my pops. Like, he is the ultimate people lover. Like, everyone that knows him loves him.
Very cool.
Well, I will say that definitely is your niche. Anyone who knows Hammond knows and loves this guy.
So, I will say, when Andrew was telling me about you, there was a sparkle in his eye.
I got that little twinkle.
It sounds like I'm joking, but he just, Andrew, you know him. He's a fairly stoic person. Like, you got to earn your jokes with him. Like, if he laughs, you did a good job. But yeah, he was excited to have you on.
Hey, listen, man. It goes back to when Andrew started the Norton Group.
Right.
The dude was giving out sleeves of Pro V1s. And I was like, okay, this is my kind of guy.
That's right. He's a premium person.
That's so funny.
And then he's like, hey, he's not a hacker in real life. He's a hacker on the golf course.
Oh, man.
Never seen somebody hit the ball higher than Andrew.
He
gets some carry.
So, Jeremy, how your dad growing up that way, he obviously instilled those values. Mm-hmm. How did he help kind of instill like the entrepreneur spirit you and your brother obviously have, if we'll get into kind of all the stuff you guys have done?
Yeah.
But he wasn't an entrepreneur.
Oh. He settled for what was comfortable. He wasn't a risk taker. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to take risks, and that's something that he wasn't willing to do. He wanted to make sure that his little family was taken care of and had the bare necessities, and that's really what we had, is the bare necessities. I think our entrepreneur bug came from when we first got into sales, we were good at it, and B, when you come from nothing, you want more. And I think the combination of that work ethic that he instilled into us and the drive for wanting more and knowing that we were already good at something is what started the bug. And then it's like resilience. You come from an environment like that, like you're a pretty resilient kid by the time you're 18. Right. And so that's another key element of entrepreneurship, right, is being resilient. And so it started there, and I'll be honest, my brother Mike, probably the second most influential guy in my life. We're going to talk about it, I know, but he's
Dang it, that's too nice of a thing for you to say. Now I'm a little worried.
They say don't do business with family, but it's honestly been the best decision that I've ever made in my entire life, and he's came into the sales industry. He was one of the top salesmen in the nation. He was crushing it and making more money in a summer back then in 2000 than my dad made. He would make 3 years of my dad's pay in one summer.
Right, wow.
And I was like, dude, let me in. And
how much how much older than you?
He's 2 years.
2 years, that's right. So
this kind of sounds like Vess Pearson a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't it his brother? Was it his little brother?
It was his little brother that went out and sold.
Right. And he goes, "You're making how much money?"
I can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Was there a little bit of that in it?
Oh, there was, dude. It's actually a funny story. I'll share it. It's quick. But so he had already sold 1 year before, made a bunch of money.
And what was he selling at that time?
Pest control.
Okay.
Preventive pest control. Awesome company that's still here in the valley. And he went out and crushed it, and he recruited me. He's like, you can do this too. And I had to finish up school and close out my job. And so I got there 2 weeks late, and I show up, and they're crushing the whole company. they're by far the number one office. And I'm like, I carried the Hammond name. He was known because he was their top rep. And I'm like, you guys are killing it, and you don't even have the other Hammond. We're going to dominate. And I got out there, and I literally didn't sell for 2 weeks. It
Nothing.
Was the biggest kick in the literally, like, it was a kick in the stomach. And Mike, actually, let me tell you what he did. When you are young and you're not successful and you think you should be successful, you start making excuses and you start blaming the scenarios. And I'm like,
blaming
man,
all the other people.
We talked about that just last week.
A rich neighborhood. These people aren't wanting to buy in. Mike just said, dude, shut up. Like, I'm going to prove to you that it's all right here. It's in your head. And he took me to the same neighborhood I had just knocked. He let me knock in front of him, and he literally knocked the doors right behind me. I sold 0. He sold 10. And he's like, it's all in your head, man. Like, you fix it here. Your pitch sounds okay, but you don't have the confidence. You're not closing. It's just little tiny things. Like, you can do it. And I think tying it back to my dad being like a people person, Mike can kind of shut that off. He can be a people person, but he's also like can disconnect. If someone's like rude to him, he really doesn't care. Like,
right.
If he's in an uncomfortable situation, he'll knock the door 6 times. And if he can see someone in the house, he'll wait until they answer. Like, if I see someone in the house not answering, I'm like, peace. Like, they don't want me here.
Right.
So,
which is so funny because you and Mike are so different
that way. Yeah.
So different, which I think goes
in what way?
In every way.
Like shy, outgoing, like what? I mean, as far as
Mike is a little
sales,
bit more reserved. He's very analytical. So
right.
He's like financial
he's a spreadsheet
background,
guy.
spreadsheet kind of guy. He looks
right.
at numbers, and unfortunately, sometimes he also looks at people that way. Like, they're black and white. Like, you're either doing something for me or you're not.
Right.
But he's actually also the most loving and caring man when you get to the core of him that you'll ever meet. So
it's so funny. There's like,
it's different.
It's like the strangest, the both of you guys, like the strangest combination. Like, when I first met you, I knew Mike and I knew you. And I remember they were saying, yeah, Jeremy has to keep Mike grounded because Mike's a dreamer. And when you first meet him, because he's kind of the analytical type, he doesn't come across as like a big thinker, ideas guy. He comes across as kind of this. And you are the people person, really friendly. And if I would have guessed when I first met you, you would have been
the clouds guy.
Right. And Mike would have been the dirt guy, right?
Yeah.
But it's the exact opposite.
It is.
Like, you keep Mike grounded. You're the one, like, Mike will come up with all these cool ideas on what he wants to do and directions he wants the companies to go. And it's up to you to make it happen.
Yeah. So I think he would tell you, and I'll tell you the same thing. I couldn't do it without him. I don't feel like we would be nearly as successful without him, and I think he would say the same thing.
I agree 100%.
So.
But it's just so funny how different you are. And when you first meet each other, you would think the opposite.
Yeah.
Just because of like natural first reactions, first personalities with the both of you.
Yeah.
So I think it's
so. Why didn't you invite him here too? Because that could have been interesting.
So he lives in Idaho, or else I would have.
He did drive.
We can
up
afford
today.
a Frontier Airlines ticket.
But I think it's also funny that a lot of our guests that we've had on have been family members.
Right.
A lot of husband-wife duos that work together very successfully. We've also had a lot of family members. I mean, even with you and Scott, you and I now doing this, family members, because I think the common knowledge is don't work with family.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories that it doesn't work out. But what's been funny is how many of the stories are working.
Yeah.
Why do you think you guys have been able to overcome it? Because it's not all roses with you guys. I mean, you guys have had your literal fist fights in your past.
We have, and I'll tell you, I think it's him way more than me. Like, Mike is someone that he can take a scenario, and he's very good at like unconditional love. And I respect him a lot for that, but it's worked in the sense that I think in the beginning it was a little bit different, where he was like cheering for his younger brother to be a big part of his company and like do something with him. But it's evolved over the years to a point where I love it, because I can sit in a meeting and he can be like, I can say, bro, that's stupid. Like, you're being an idiot. And he can be like, no, you're being an idiot. And we can kind of go at it. And at the end of it, we can come to a resolution, but we speak truthfully, if that makes sense. We don't ever have to hide like your true feelings. And I think more gets done when you can truthfully speak about where the business is or what's happening in the business, without, like, an employee or someone that doesn't hold that. Sometimes they try to protect themselves or the situation, and so they hide a little bit of how they really feel.
Right.
Worried about damaging the relationship. I know that I can be even in the wrong and as rude as I have ever been to him, and he'll still love me.
That is the one advantage to family, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't go anywhere, right? I mean, it may get a little ugly sometimes, but at least it gets dealt with.
You know what? When you have partners, it's a lot like family or marriage anyways. Like,
right.
That's why when things don't go well with partners, it's kind of like it can be nasty. It can get a little bit crazy.
How did you guys learn to handle it that way? Because I'm sure in the beginning, if you guys would have had a nasty disagreement, it's easy to kind of carry that with you for a while. And so did you guys learn that we have a certain way to talk about things? We have something that we like to do. Like, how have you guys been able to kind of manage that relationship and learn that process?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I think that it was something that when you go back to why does it work, I think it was the way we were raised. I think it goes back to my parents. And I think it goes back to the family unity that we had as a family. Like, regardless of how bad it ever got as a family, we always stuck together and had each other. And we've kind of done that in business. I don't look back and say, okay, was this super hard and when did it get good? I think it's always been that way with us, where we let things roll. We don't dwell on things for more than a few hours, and we get past it. And regardless if we're right or wrong, I understand that he's the CEO. And even if I don't agree with him, I'm going to do what he asks of me to do, and he's in that role, and I'm fine with it.
Wow.
So
my little brother wouldn't do that. Not a chance.
Yeah. So it works, but going back, so I had sold nothing, and he kind of changed my mindset, sent me out, and I had a wake-up call the next day. Like, I kind of got knocked into reality, and that story was, it was funny. I'd just gone out with Mike, and he was like, dude, it's all in your head. I spent the whole day knocking, zeroing out, saw he sold. He sent me out with our number 2 rep. His name is Jeremy Jackson. He ended up being a partner with us when we first started Caliber. And very first door, it's actually a funny story. Very first door we knock, we're in Surprise, Arizona. They have little black beetles out there. And it's like, also has an army base. So the first guy that answers the door, he's like an army general, and he comes like in our face, like, what do you want? And in that scenario, I'm the people, I would have been like, hey dude, peace out. Like, I'm not trying to like bug you. But I sat and watched him take him from very aggressive to educating him on how we could solve a problem and why he needed it. And I was like in awe as I watched the very first door, and I had just got my butt kicked the day before with Mike, and I was on the verge of like needing to go home or stay. And the whole time he's selling them, this dude's 4-year-old kid's like running in, running out, and he's like, get back in the house, like, because he was just being crazy.
So he's super distracted.
And I'm standing behind both of them, and we gets to the part where he's closing them, and this kid runs out, jumps from inside the house, and literally punches me in my jewels. and it's funny to think about now, and then it was too. We laughed about it hard, but they didn't know that it had happened. They were into the sell. They didn't realize what happened. So I go, oh, and they both stand up. And there was, in Arizona, the houses are made of stucco,
right,
and behind the stucco is chicken wire, and there was a piece of chicken wire sticking out. So when I went, oh, that chicken wire went right in my pants, sliced my butt, and cut my shorts.
My gosh.
And so then I go, oh. And both of them now are looking at me, and they realize what happened, and they're like on the ground laughing. And I'm like, bro, your son just freaking took me out. But the moral of the story is I had to go home to change my pants because like blood was running down. And I'm like, dude, like buck up. Like this is your wake up call. Like figure it out and quit being a sissy and go after it. And I did just that. I actually started crushing it on the doors and sold a lot of accounts and made a lot of money that summer. But that's how it started. And I look back at what that taught me from so many aspects of my life on like how to endure through something that was difficult, how to talk to people, how to persuade them to do something that they didn't necessarily want. And you use that in business every single day. I loved it. I loved what it did for me. And I think that's what catapulted us into wanting to do it ourselves.
You know, I think knocking doors. So I did it for about 9 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, just hearing that general story, there's a lot about that there's a really cool parallel to entrepreneurship, I think, just because I think 90% of the population, when the general answers the door, it's like, what the hell do you want? Mm-hmm. You just be like, you have a beautiful home, sir. Have a nice day. And, you know, those are the people that just want to work for people. They just want to be safe. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone. They don't want to stand in the face of that like your buddy did. And just, you know, the guys that say that don't get, you know, rattled by that, stay in the pocket, right? Little football reference. And then just slowly kind of work the person down, get that guard down.
Yep.
Solve a problem, get a sale. There are so many things in life, whether it be marriage, family, starting a business, that's what it is, man. Like it looks like a 100-foot tall wall. There's no way in hell I can get over that, but there's that small amount of people out there that does not let that intimidate them, and they stick in it, and then they get it. And that's the difference. That's the difference between you knocking the door and then Mike knocking the door behind you. Is you don't take no for an answer because you believe in what you're doing, you believe in what you're selling, you stay in it, and you get a sale. And so I think starting a company is the same thing.
It is.
It's so intimidating and it's so scary to take that first step, but there are those select few people like yourself that it's like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. So let's do it.
I'll tell you, it's there's no doubt that it's the resiliency that I talk about. You have to be resilient, and it's no different than when you're asking for someone's business. Sometimes you have to be resilient,
right,
and go for it. And that's the beauty of what we teach people now, right? Is how to be successful beyond the doors. Like knocking doors isn't a glorious job.
It is not, but you're right. There's so much that you can relate it to, because if you can knock a door away from home, far from home, in the heat of Surprise, Arizona, right? I mean, the rejection, a lot of times you don't even have a car because you get dropped off. It's if you can do that, there are very few things that you can't do.
Yeah.
And so I think it's such a great start for somebody that wants to get into business or start their own thing. Going out knocking doors, like there's not much that's going to scare you or intimidate you after that. At least in the business world.
It's true. So DVRs were brand new back then. You guys remember when DVRs first came out? And Dish was paying a pretty good bounty for helping get customers. We looked at it compared to the pest control, which is what we had knowledge in. And we were like, man, this could be a cash cow rather than an investment for a long-term play. We wanted to do something we could generate a bunch of cash with and then get into that more long-term stuff. And so that's kind of the route we played. Is we started a business, and as young guys, that's what we started for. We wanted to generate a bunch of cash and be the biggest. That's what it was all about.
Right.
And so we did that. It was Dish One. So
how long have you been in preventative?
So I was 2002, and we started Dish One 2004.
So a couple of years of selling, you're like, let's go do our own thing.
Yeah, Mike was the president of sales over there for a little bit, and he did want to respect the non-compete. He didn't want to go be a competitor to a company he loved, and so we started
which is very. I'm sorry, but nowadays that's
rare in that industry.
That is that industry is nuts. It's just like the second someone dangles a little bit more money in your face, it's like I'm out.
Yeah.
So the fact that he wanted to respect that and still had good feelings, like that
goes back to the core integrity of Mike. That's what makes him a great guy.
Right.
But we started Dish, and we quickly became the biggest. There was another company that was ahead of us called Atlas. Atlas ended up dissolving, and so we became the biggest pretty quick from a Dish Network retailer perspective. 4 years into it, we got back into pest control. Now non-solicit was out. Mark Cram kind of peeled off and ran pest control for us while we continued to run the satellite side. And Mark's a partner of ours today too.
Before we go farther, I want to talk about something that I also think is interesting, talking about you and Mike specifically. Mike is kind of the more, if you want to call it a traditional path, graduated in finance, got his MBA from the U of U, right? I mean, you would almost call him more the traditional path to what a CEO is, right? You don't have that.
No.
You know what I mean? You didn't go, so what types of...
And now Mike's mad because he realizes, damn it, I did not need to do any of that to be where I am today.
I'd actually love to ask him that question.
I can't remember who said it, but someone said, hey, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education. And I think that's the path that I've taken is I actually endorse school, and I think everybody should do it. And I'm going to have my kids do it. But I didn't. And I'm just fine with that. I love school for the simple fact that it's the education part. I think that you should learn to continue to educate yourself, not only in school, but after school.
I mean, if we're being honest, kid from small town Idaho, not a lot of college education, summer sales guy. What in the world qualifies you to run the type of organization that you're running now? How have you taught yourself, and how have you been able to evolve and adapt to get to where you're at?
Okay, so let me tell you what it is. And I don't give myself props for much, but I actually will give myself props for this. And that is, I'm not the most talented guy that you'll ever meet in the business world. But what I do get is I get people, I get opportunity, and I'm trustworthy. You can trust me. And so what I've been able to do is use that to influence some of the most talented guys, I feel like the most talented guys, to join my team and build something that's huge. The one thing that sets Caliber apart, hands down, and it's a little bit unique, is we've grown to the point where we've started taking some of the biggest dealers in the country and folding them into our opportunity. And with that came some of the most talented business entrepreneurs in the satellite space anyways. And so when you look at the executive level, every one of my SVPs owned a big company at some point. And where I come into play and where my talent really comes is those guys are the talent. Those guys are the studs that actually do most of the work to grow this business. Those guys, the regionals under them, the managers under them. But I'm kind of the glue that keeps those guys together, because when you get 4 or 5 CEOs together,
I bet that's interesting.
It's a lot of alphas.
it's
in
great.
there.
It actually is a lot of alpha, and it's really, really unique in our business. But we have come together really, really well, and a lot of that talent in our business has come through relationships that I've built over time. And so I don't give myself any of the credit. I only give myself the credit for I'm the president of sales, and I'm by far not one of the best sales reps in the company. I mean, I know how to do it, but what I can do is the guys that are phenomenal, I can get them working to build something awesome.
Support them, motivate them.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Because a lot of people have tried to take that route where they try to kind of build this team of really good people, but everyone thinks that they're the best. So how have you been able to take all of these personalities, strong personalities, and help them understand that they might not be the best or they might not be right all the time? Like, how have you been able to kind of
So what people
that?
don't know is there's several talented people we've brought in that no longer work for us. But the guys that are consistently there, that are building big things for us, they fit our culture of what we're trying to do overall. So when you look at the guys that are there that are building now, those guys are guys that fit exactly what we are trying to do as a company. They care more about their people than anything. And they're fine with putting a lot of these guys went from making $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year as a business owner to making less for the greater cause of what they're building overall. And you gotta actually respect the heck out of them.
Why'd you look at me when you said heck? It's like my wife's in here all of a sudden.
That BYU hat, got to me.
I don't know if you've ever been to a BYU football practice before, but the part of BYU I love, we're allowed to say that word.
Oh, okay. You really got to respect them and what they're doing, and they become some of my best friends. And now that's the beauty of going to work. Like, I get to go to work with some of my best friends every single day, and we do have our differences, and our meetings do sometimes get crazy with all that alpha male.
Right.
But at the end, very similar. They're resilient. They're committed to the purpose, and they want to do something that's greater than themselves, which is awesome.
So what do you guys bring? If I'm a CEO of a company and it's doing good, what's the advantage in those companies folding into Caliber? Like, what advantages do they get by?
So it's funny you say that, because the advantage isn't always necessarily for them. The advantage is for their people, because we now have enough resources and a good enough platform that all of their people can come make more money, have a better stable environment, and we've also once you've heard this a lot, money's important when you don't have it, but once you have money, or you've gotten to the point where you don't think about money all the time and it's not a driving force, you do things for different reasons.
Sure.
And that's really it. We're doing it for a different purpose and a different reason, and it's we're now all committed to making something that actually, we call it the School of Hard Knocks, but the School of Hard Knocks is better than any freaking university on the planet.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We'll
School of
teach you.
YouTube, School of Hard Knocks.
We don't have our own football team yet.
What's that saying that you always have, Andrew, about providing more value than you get in compensation or something like that?
First principle for the go-giver.
It sounds a lot.
So
it sounds a lot
this
like
dude named Joe, and Joe is a successful businessman. Yeah, and he wanted more, right? And he kept running into walls, and he runs into this billionaire that is going to coach him. He introduces him to 5 dudes, and those are the 5 laws of the freaking go-giver. And that's actually something that one of my best friends gave me 7 years ago. and said, I live by this book, and it's actually changed the way that I look at business in general. It's actually, I used to say how to win friends, influence people is my go-to, but the Go-Giver is literally my go-to. It's everything that I want to embrace in business. And I think it really engulfs like what we're trying to accomplish.
It sounds just like it. I mean, that's kind of what I kept thinking is, it's like, does Bob Berg consult for you guys?
Dude,
do you remember giving me that book?
Of course I do.
Christmas? Yeah. Man. Awesome.
Dude, he's coming on the podcast.
Is he really?
Yes.
No way.
I reached out to him and I've got in touch with him. Dude, he's coming on the podcast.
Let me come.
I know we might have to go to Florida for that one, huh?
Yep.
Might be too good of one to not be in person.
So anyone who's listening, go get the Go-Giver.
Yeah.
I've literally given, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of copies of this book to people.
Yeah.
And it's a short read. It's not.
It's little.
I mean, what is
I've talked to some people and they've been like, oh, it's kind of cheesy. But then other people, it's had the impact it's had on me.
They have
on
black
you, Jeremy.
souls. If they think it's cheesy, they're just not a good person.
I mean, it's a little cheesy, but it's actually at the core, like,
it's right.
It's the perfect book, bro.
Yeah, it's awesome. So,
yeah.
So, Jeremy, as you've kind of built what you've built now, you've reached, certain levels of success.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to your kids to instill the grind and the work ethic that you had growing up? Because your kids are growing up in a very different house than you grew up in.
Yeah.
What's that grin on your face, Andrew? Is it like 12,000 square feet? 15,000 square feet?
No. No. It's not.
Full court gym in the basement?
Not at all. That's
He's like,
Mike
no, it's
up
upstairs.
in Idaho. Yeah. I'll tell you, my kids are something that I look at as the outside of building this business for purposes that I've explained. They're my why, and I think they're most people's why that have kids. But
how many kids do you have?
I have 4.
4 kids,
and my kids are either artificial insemination or in vitro. That's how they got here. So they're pretty special to me, and it's the relationship that I care about most. And the one thing I have been blessed with is some pretty sweet kids. Like, they're awesome. And they're good kids. And I think that there's a few things that I try to teach them. It's been harder for me than for my dad, but my 15-year-old is working every single day at Real Athlete. She has a job. She understands what a debit card is and how she needs to track that in her bank. And we make her buy things that she wants with her money. So she understands I work hard for this. I'm probably not going to waste money. She still tries to milk us where she can. But
that just means she's learning how to sell.
She's saving up quite a bit of money, and she's going after it. She's been consistent. She's awesome. She's beautiful. She makes me super proud. And I give a lot of credit to Robin with her, my wife. She's done a phenomenal job with her. And she gets to stay at home with the kids. She's the perfect stay-at-home mom. Like, she gives her life to those kids. But one thing I try to do when I come home, and I haven't always been great at it, but I'm getting better, is I try to make sure that I spend that one-on-one time with them. And one thing that's really helped my 12-year-old Aiden is, and he's a little stud. He's just a leader. He's super. He does dumb things sometimes. But he's
a 12-year-old boy. What do you expect?
For a 12-year-old kid, I couldn't be prouder of him. And one thing I've actually done that is awesome is we talk about things like the Go-Giver and things for motivation. For years, every single night before he went to bed, we would balance it between spiritual. We might do something spiritual one night. We might do a motivational video one night. We might just look at freaking awesome runs from running backs one night. I showed him a video 2 nights ago about, it was a motivational video about a guy that was a drug addict, was super rude to his mom. And one day he woke up and his mom was gone, and she was the one lady that cared for him. And he rolled that back into like cherish your mom while she's here. And last night when I sat down to watch some other videos, he's like, Dad, I told Mom how much I love her today, and blah, blah. Really cool. So he's really good that way.
And blah, blah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Seriously. Things started getting a little feely for him. He's like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I'm getting a little emotional.
I was like, man, this is amazing.
Blah, blah's my escape route. But he's a really well-centered, like, dude. And I've taken that now and seen what it's done for him, so I'm starting to do that with my little ones. So
very cool.
It's cool.
Now, you're a super busy dude.
Yeah.
And may I say, probably the absolute hardest person to get a hold of. It used to be you, Cam.
Wait.
Cam, I'm looking at you.
Are we recording?
The only person that
I don't
might
think
have
I've
been
ever
harder
had somebody not put me in first place in that
get a hold
category.
of
This
Cam
feels really good.
then was Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate that.
I got your back.
One thing, Vest Pearson.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about, like, there's seasons in everyone's life. And right now you're in the season of running a business and growing, and it requires a lot of your time.
Yeah.
What types of things are non-negotiable for you, though, when it comes to the family? Like, what is it? It's like, do you know what? I don't care what's going on. I'm not going to miss this.
So when a kid has any type of an event that they've been working hard on, whether it's graduation or it's a game because they practice every single day, or it's a cheering event, whatever it is, they put a lot of time and energy and effort into that. And they don't do it just for themselves and their friends. The people that like what a child wants to do is impress their parents more than anyone. And so I think when it's time for their practice to be put to the test, I need to make sure I'm there every single time, because I want them. It's funny because my 12-year-old's pretty athletic. He's in every single play, and my 6-year-old's actually probably more athletic, but he's like a wuss. Like he's not like a real, like, I'm going to go after it.
Right.
And so I go to his game, and he doesn't really do much in the game. But when he's done, he's like, "Did you see me tackle that guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you killed it. You're awesome." And really in my head, I'm thinking, bro, we got some work to do here, man. So I think that you just have to put that into perspective. I try not to miss as much as I can, and I try to be at those events always, because my kids do, and it's one thing that I hope that I can eventually get there, but they do sacrifice a lot of time away from their dad, because I do put a lot into this business, and that's really my goal. Is I don't want to be doing it forever, but I do love what I'm doing. I love what it's doing for hundreds of families across the U.S. and I'm going to put it in, but I try to put it into perspective that there's a lot of good things my family gets to do together because of this job as well. So
yeah, 100%. And I think we were talking about that with Jenna Rammel last week is I think one of the most important things that, she's very open about her love of money. Mm-hmm. And, that at first that sounds kind of like, oh, okay. What does that mean? But once we broke it down, it was more about time for her. Mm-hmm. It affords me the time to, if you want to go on a vacation with your family, right? Or if you want to be at the games, because that's what your kids are going to remember. Mm-hmm. Who cares if you're not there for practice or whatever? But if you're at the games, like, once they're fathers and mothers and they realize how much time it takes to support a family and everything else, they're going to look back and be like, man, Pops was at every game, and he ran a big business, a big company. Like, that's huge. That was awesome that he was there. And so I think for a lot of people, and maybe yours is different, but helping other people, giving other people jobs, I mean, that's always going to come back to you. But I think having the time to be able to go and be there for your family and not miss that stuff is, at least for me, is a huge part of I guess the way to say it is why I like money, right? Mm-hmm. I don't like it enough to open another restaurant.
There's certain things that money
too much
does.
Work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I try to keep that perspective into my kids all the time is at the end of the day, your friends are cool, but you're going to be stuck with us forever.
Yep.
And that's where the family trips and having that unity as a family and making sure that we spend the time together to, at the end of the day, have that relationship is super important to my wife and I. And we embrace that wholeheartedly. And to be honest, that's where the go-giver and the change in our business like really occurred. I had a brother that struggled with addiction, and it was like the craziest thing seeing this Hammond clan of 9 really like it affected everyone. And even though we weren't at home anymore, like we all felt it. We all like were pulling for him, and we mourned the fact that he was struggling so hard. And it came to a point where he hit his rock bottom. He's like, dude, I need, like we'd already tried to help him several ways and it hadn't stuck, but he was finally like, I need help. And that's like the perfect thing that you want to hear is 100%. I need help, not you need help, but I need help.
Right.
And we wanted to get him into a facility that actually could make a difference. And the Cirque Lodge, 8th North, it's $30,000 a month.
Right.
And he felt like that was his best chance. They have doctors there that can like look at the psychology of the brain and see like how they're doing. And because of our business, we were in a position to pay for it. And I'm like, that's why we do what we do. But it started changing what we did because my brother that struggled, he is literally like, it's amazing to watch the transformation where he's at and what a stud he is now, and see that like overcoming the obstacles and what having a successful business was able to support and do for him. And now you do that, not to that level, but you're doing that with a lot of people that come in to this industry or into this job that don't have a lot, and they leave with fulfillment. Because there's so many kids that they'll go out and make $100,000 in 4 months, and then they'll go find a job the next year for $40,000 a year because they don't want to do it again. It's because you can be left at the end of a summer with a bunch of money, but if you're not fulfilled right. and you don't know what you're doing with that money, and there's not like the long-term vision, like good luck keeping them around.
So how have you guys found, like, what's been your key to that? Because you guys have done a really good job. You know, it's obviously a focus of the owners, this culture mm-hmm. and this fulfillment, right?
So it's our SVPs have been awesome at it. Those guys I talked about, the business owners, they have embraced some of that stuff. Like we preach things like Power Hour, which is give yourself the time in the morning to like educate yourself. We preach.
Talk about that a little bit for mm-hmm. like people who are listening.
Yeah. So Power Hour is every single morning. You give yourself time to look at your personal side, to study something personally, business, spiritual. You really break down that hour into different elements, and it's all about you, whether it's financially, self-educating yourself. We preach that you do that every single day. And Mark Cram, if you get him on here, he's for a long time he did an email and a little motivational message every single day for a long time. But it was all about Power Hour. He would preach and educate our guys as much as he possibly could. But outside of Power Hour, we also believe that you need to pay attention to what you're doing with your money. So we had one of our regionals that became he's just like AVB right over here. But he's come in and he's really put together a financial program, and our guys go through that educational process.
So important to educate yourself,
especially in that industry.
Yes.
You know, it was always so funny. I always thought that was like the alarm industry's way of keeping people in. Was they just go out and blow their back end and buy a BMW or something, and then not have any money. I'm like, well, I guess I got to go back out if I want to keep this lifestyle. But because I mean, the financial education goes all the way back to school. Like, we don't do any of that in this country. Like, they don't teach that in school. They don't teach kids about debit cards and about credit and about things like that. And so I think companies do have a responsibility. It's like, if you offer somebody an opportunity to make, $100,000 in a half of a year, like, that could be you could actually hurt somebody with.
Yeah.
I mean, you give a 21-year-old $100,000 in 6 months that doesn't know what they're doing it for or what to do with it. I mean, holy crap, you can get a whole host of problems. And so I think education is a huge thing.
Some of our more successful guys, what they do is they almost live broke. It's actually awesome. They'll take all the money they earn, they'll put it into real estate, and it will force them to continue to drive the business and make more money, so that when they are done, they're not left with a bunch of money that they blow, but they're left with assets. Right.
What would you say has been the single most, has there been, better question, a moment that stands out? Something that happened that you're like, you know what, we're doing it.
I call it progress, because you can do a lot. You can be a go-getter, right, and get a lot of results, but are you really making progress? And so that's a repetitive thing that happens a lot in our industry, where we see guys that will come in and say, I just want to get my first house, or even I want my first car, or I have sucky credit and I'm wanting to be more financially stable, and we get those weekly. And honestly, that's the most fulfilling part about this job, is it's the platform I talked about.
Right.
It's not about the opportunity. It's not about how much I'm going to pay you. It's about, what is this platform going to do for you?
What's the result of this? What is the end result of all of this stuff? The money is, nice and that kind of stuff, but where are we going to end up?
Right. And salespeople too. Good salespeople inherently have problems. I think it's a balance thing, right? God gives you some talents. Yeah. But he also gives you some weaknesses. And I think with salespeople, they're so great at people. Yeah. And they have such a gift. You saw it your first couple weeks, just same doors. And I mean, you've already kind of ruined the door, right? You've knocked on the door. You've already bugged the person. So your brother's knocking into somebody that's already oh, what the what do you want? Somebody was just here, but a lot of times with good salespeople, they're really good at that, but they really suck at other things. That's how I was. It was easy for me. I could sell really quick, but I'd sell 2 alarms by 4:30, and my motivation was I'm going to a movie afterwards. And so it was, I was never really good with money. And that's the thing, is if you can take somebody that has that gift with people and with communication, and then help them build those weaknesses, because that's why we have weaknesses, right? Yeah. It's to help us grow and learn new things. But if there's a company that cares enough, that's hey, you're making yourself money, your family money, you're making us money, so we want to show you that we value you, and we're going to help you out with this side and teach you kind of what we've learned. You can really build a very, very powerful person. Well,
that's what will also get people to do one of the less glamorous jobs over and over again, is if they know they're making progress, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, and if because it's so easy, and this maybe sounds bad, it's easy to go out and make money if you're a good salesman. You'll always have a job. But it's a hamster wheel, right? You'll never get off of it. You'll make money, you'll spend it. You'll make money, you'll spend it. Kind of feast or famine, whatever. But you don't progress. Yeah. And that's the one thing I saw in the industry when I was there, was I never really had anybody telling me what to do with it or how to be smart with it. There was kind of the clique above me that had that. But man, if one of them would have come down and said, okay, every 10 grand you make, we're going to take 5 and we're going to put it here, and I'm going to teach you what to do with it. Holy crap. Yeah. I mean, it would have made all the difference in the world. You get them
young, and when they first start, it makes a massive
difference. You teach them principle and discipline.
Right, and it's got to create some loyalty for you, too, because especially in the industry that you're in, it's so easy to bounce around. But if you have a company that I'm making great money and I feel valued and they care about me, and they don't want me just to make money for everybody, they want me to learn how to be smart with it, they're not going to want to leave that.
That's the go-giver right there in and of itself.
Yeah, you create more value than I mean, absolutely.
And then you create an army of walking ambassadors.
Yeah.
100%. And that's very cool to hear somebody in your position. You're talking more about the value that you're giving than your success. And that says a lot about you and your brother and your company, frankly, and that's why you guys are a success.
So let me give you an example of how that's actually helped us big time. Is in the beginning, you're all about the numbers and the money.
Right.
As our business has evolved, you actually look at it from the products that we represent, the two biggest right now being Dish and Sprint. And you say, okay, how am I bringing tremendous value to them? And we changed our focus 5 years ago when Dish bought us to, you know what, we're going to go after the highest credit score, the longest term, best, most profitable type of customer, which is rural America for them. And we're going to really bring as much value as we can to our partners. And in return, what that's done is it's really made them value us. Like we can be doing significantly less accounts than their Google pay-per-click. These companies do hundreds of thousands of accounts, and we don't do hundreds of thousands of accounts. But our accounts are worth 3 times the amount of any of their other accounts. So I can do a third of the volume, and I'm bringing just as much value, and they can't go do it. And so really that's our niche at this point. Like we've made it harder to be
quantity.
here. Mm-hmm.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second with you, because I love what we're talking about. But if someone was just getting started, if you were just getting started with a new business, how can you start a new business focused on value and culture and fulfillment as opposed to money? Because I think
you should know. You know why?
I think some people
the
sit back.
Go-Giver talks exactly about this. It's like one of the first questions people ask themselves is when they go to start a new business is, how much money am I going to make? What's it look like? Well, that's probably the wrong first question. It's a good question.
I love that you brought it up.
But it's
not
the
a bad
wrong
question.
first question.
It's the wrong first question.
Yes. So you got to make sure you're making money, but the first question should be, what kind of value am I bringing to others with this product, and what problem am I solving? And then the money comes, right? And so I think keeping that into perspective is exactly what we try to do.
Love it.
I
lobbed it up there, and he just knocked it right out.
And that's all the Gary Vee stuff, right?
Yep.
Bring more value. I mean, it's the same principle.
For sure it is.
Well, and you did kind of say in the beginning, like, you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we first started, we wanted to be the biggest. We want to make the money. But once the money's come in, it's like, okay, there's only so much that money's money. But now what can we evolve into, and
Sure.
how can we be better and bigger and give more people this opportunity? And so,
and my love for people is a blessing. It's also a curse. You say I'm busy, but I'm busy because I talk way too much.
that's why I don't go into the dining room at lunchtime.
Yeah,
I'll be stuck out there for 3 hours just chatting it up. Won't get anything
But I
done.
love my people. I'm fortunate enough to work, like I said, with some of my best friends, and I've either recruited them in and they work with me now. And honestly, that's what matters more to me, is having the relationship with them and being able to work with my friends than it does to, at the end of the day, we got to be successful and run a successful business, but it's all working together, and it actually works pretty good.
Huh, very cool.
So last question before we go. What are you excited about? What are you working on right now? Not in the business, but personally. Do you have something that's kind of your next target? Do you have something that you're working towards?
Well, my goal is to get into a position where I'm not the hardest guy to get a hold of, but my friends are important, but my family is by far the most important. Right. And so I just want to get in a position where I can spend more time. I want to be, for example, I want to be the head coach of my son's football team next year. It's a time commitment I cannot give right now.
Right.
But my dad was a coach growing up, and I see what that's done for my friends and for me, and the influence he's had on my friends and me. And I'm like, I don't want to look back and be like, I got Caliber that I was awesome at, but I want to be able to say, like, hey, I balanced it all, like, perfect. So I think that's really it, is freeing up time. I've talked to you a little bit about this, AVB, but I want to free up time for what's most important. And I struggle with that a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm a Hammond's or one-track mind, so
right.
I get to work and I'm like, oh wait, I have a family. Oh yeah.
I think it's cool to hear, again, somebody at your level have such a specific. It's a fairly, I don't want to say a simple goal, but it's cool that you're thinking in terms of. It's not just I want more time with my family. I want to be the head coach of my kids' football team.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, it's a very direct, and specific goal. And to hear somebody that has, earned the success that you have, still setting those types of goals, I think it's an educational thing. I don't think that specifically, and I need to.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's.
Well,
That's
Cam,
really,
I can
really
see
cool
why you're
goal.
successful, man.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, you're a people person. I can tell, kind of like me. And AVB, I can't say enough about you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He is a good dude. I'll tell you, having him be a member at my gym was one of the funnest times of my life. He crushed me at basically everything except for shoulders to overhead. So the moral of the story is, if he has to run to save your life, you're good. But if he has to lift a tree off you, you might as well die.
Well, I can pick it up. I just can't push it above my head.
Okay, that's it.
That's what's teamwork, right?
That's right.
He's better at me than most, but I can lift a little bit more over my head.
That's amazing. Well, thanks for coming on.
Jeremy,
Man.
thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate
Very,
you guys.
very cool conversation, and yeah, we're excited for you, and I'll help sponsor the football team next year.
Yeah,
I'll do
buddy.
some team meals for you when you're head coach, but only if you're the head coach.
I love
I'm going to
it.
try to incentivize you
To do it.
get that head coach spot. So,
Well, thanks for thinking of me. It means a lot.
very cool.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, guys, thanks for joining.